Today's guest is a guy we affectionately refer to as Herman the German. Joined Scorpions in the late 70s and was vital in the commercial success of the band in the 80s. It's 2025. He's here with a brand new solo album, Herman and Friends, What About Love? Herman Rarebell, welcome to the show. How are you, buddy?
Well, very well. Thank you very much. I hope you guys too, Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right off the bat, Herman Rarebell, that's a stage name. When did you pivot to a stage name as opposed to your God-given name?
I can tell you, my real name is Herbal, Herman Herbal. So when I was in England, they used to say to me Herman Rarebell. No, I said Herbal. And then they said, oh, Herman the German. So that was easy for them to remember. But then my artist name is Rarebell, which is like a rare clock on the drums. That's where it came from in my brain.
There you go.
So Herman, I have a little bit of German roots in me. My grandmother on my grandmother on my mother's side, her last name was Abel, and so came in from Germany, and through Ellis Island and all that kind of stuff. And I've always had a fascination with German culture. I studied a little bit, and working in the pharmaceutical industry, I visited places like München and Hamburg and Frankfurt and Potsdam and Berlin and Köln, so many other places. So I have a question though about beer. I love beer, and I will say the Kölsch beer is my favorite beer. So what about you? What kind of beers do you like?
Olana, the beer from Munich. That's the best beer from Munich. That's what you drink at the Oktober Beer Festival. And I recommend highly for you both that you come and visit Munich. I will be there. And then I take you to the Oktober Beer Festival. That is the real Germany, Bavaria.
Well, that sounds good to me. I actually did go to Oktoberfest in the autumn of 1995. I was in one of those big beer halls, and as much as the beer was fascinating, what I remember better was the food in the streets. The sausage sandwiches and the big bratzel and things of that nature, they were delicious. Never again have I had that taste. At the girls as well, yes, the German girls.
Now you're gonna forget 85. Now it's more wild than ever. You have never seen anything like it. 7 million visitors, 1 million come alone from Australia. Then we have, of course, from the United States, a million, another million from England. Is an international Volksfest. That's what we call it here. And people just get together and drink and eat and have a good time.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. So, Herman, the What About Love album, listen, this one's a celebration of the 80s. So John and I are both children of the 80s. I'm 54. John's a few years older than me. But we grew up with those rock posters on the wall, glued to our TVs in New Jersey, watching MTV videos, blasting music out of our cars with the cassettes and eventually the CDs. But before we get into some of the songs, like, what did the 80s mean to you personally? And why did you decide to make this journey back in time to revisit this great era?
Number one, for me personally, it was my golden years with the Scorpions, as you know. All those mostly hits, we wrote with three people, and I have really good memories. And then I decided to bring these memories back to the future, back basically in the 80s. I would like to take as many people back to the 80s as possible, introduce the music, so maybe some parents come there with their kids and grandchildren and tell them, look, what a good time we had in the 80s. A lot of love, a lot of optimism, a lot of fun. And this time I like to have back, because for me, musically, it was the best songs, the best time ever. Those songs can be still played today and still give you chills, Like, I Want to Know What Love Is and stuff like this can be played forever. I picked What About Love, and I'm very happy that I could convince Howard Lees. Then, of course, Jim Valens, who wrote the song, Bob Daisley, who plays the bass in there. And then Huff, what a killer player. He plays the first solo on What About Love. And Howard tells me, your version is better than our original version. So what can I tell you, I'm very happy to have him in there playing a solo. You saw the video, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think, it's a strong song and the message is strong. They all did it for nothing because they believe in the message of love. When you look around the world now, it's only hate, hate, hate. I want to bring back the love.
Oh, I agree. Herman, talking about love, who didn't love the LA Sunset Strip in the 80s? You lived there for a while, going to the Rainbow, the Troubadour, the Whiskey, all those clubs. Any fun stories from that time? Because it's legendary. Uh, you ever rub elbows with some big stars and make any friendships there? Tell us some stories.
I met everybody in the Rainbow, as you can imagine. I remember when I went to the Whiskey a Go Go one night, there's Tommy Lee running to me. Oh, Herman, good to see you here. Would be nice if you produce us. I have a band called Motley Crue, telling me all these things. But that was around the blackout time.
Yep.
And I lived in LA 84 and 85, I must say, best city in the world, best parties ever, as you can imagine. When the Rainbow closed, the party started.
Why were they the best parties? And what kind of who had these parties that made it the best parties?
Because many times we ended up in my house, which was not far away, And also, Rob Smallwood, the manager from Iron Maiden, he was also not far away, so we go there. Or we went to Don Dokken, which, I played with him many times on my solo album. There were many people and friends from this area.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was such a great time. Like Walt said, we grew up in that era, and we would read about the shenanigans and Circus and Imperator, and then when MTV was, I don't want to say glorified, but it was exemplified. It was awesome to view from a distance.
Yes, I was the best. When you listen to the songs from the 80s, I picked about a dozen. I must say there aren't any songs like this around anymore. Okay, I like Food Fighters and stuff and bands like this. But a few days ago, I saw Becoming Led Zeppelin in the movies. And I thought also, what a great band, what a music. So this kind of music will never die. It will be there forever, I'm sure.
I couldn't agree with you more, Herman. My dog got me up a wiener dog, a German dog. I have German dogs as well. My wiener dog woke me up Sunday morning at 7 to go outside. So I was awake and I put on the TV. And what was on? Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy. And it reminds me not just of the music, but of the films from that era too. But Herman, you make a good point, and I had a question about this. You selected these 11, 12, or 12 songs from the album. There's a mixture of rock songs and some ballads and some slower songs, but how did you narrow it down to those songs? Because there were probably hundreds of hits and popular songs that were on the radio in the 80s that you could have selected.
These were my favorites because I had personal reason. Don't forget, I played with Weissneck, for example, many, many concerts together. And my favorite song always was Here I Go Again, so I put it on the album. Also, Robert Palmer was a personal friend of mine. I lived in this years also in the south of France, and he lived in Milano, a 2-hour car drive. So we saw each other all the time. He also came and visited me in Zitadek Studios in Germany. So for me, it was obvious that I take Addicted to Love on the album. Then, as I said to you, John Jett opened up for the Scorpions 1984 European tour. Of course, I Like Rock and Roll has to be on there. And then my girl singer in the band, she said, Herman, I like to do Love is a Battlefield from Pat Benatar and also like to do a hard song. So she played me those two songs and said, yep, you have a great voice, we do them. So I have now a girl in the band, and Michael Forst, who's also the producer of Michael Schenker. And then the other musicians, I think also the writer is playing piano in my band, Jim Ballads. He plays the piano on What About Love. Never before with anybody else. And he wrote the biggest hits, as you know, for Aerosmith, Brian Adams, and all those guys. I'm honored.
I was going to say, Herman, to me, the star of the album is Van der Forst. She's got a beautiful voice. And you know what? There's something about the reinterpretation of these songs. They're a little more subdued. They're a little more chill, which is kind of refreshing. Like you could play it in your house, maybe if you had friends over. It would be nice music to have around for multiple generations. But where did you find her? Because I did a little research, and it appears maybe she's also now like a rising star in Nashville.
I can tell you how I found that. Michael Fuss, my co-producer and also my singer in the band, he married the mother, Eva von der Forst. So the man singer also, but she's a singer. So I heard her on What About Love. She sang the backing vocals, and then I heard the voice, and I said to myself, wow, she can not only sing backing vocals. I said, can you sing also songs, girl songs? She said, no problem. Which one would you like to hear? I said, yeah, Love is a Battlefield. But I heard it's like you. My hair stood up, and I knew We made a new version. It really rocks now, in my opinion. I played a bit heavier because I'm a heavy rock drummer. But then, what I was very amazed about the voice, Sana, what passion, you know. She brings it over perfect. So the same goes for the Screams, the other hard song. So for me, it was obvious that I use her, obviously. But we play live now. I have two singers, Michael Forst and her. And it makes great color, for example, when you listen to my song, you know, Passion Rules the Game. Both of them sing now in there. Also, a new guitar solo in there. Same goes for Love is a Battlefield with guitar solo. So we didn't make big changes in the arrangements, but we added something to it to make it ourselves, you know.
I mean, did you get any feedback from the original artists on these songs?
No, the only feedback I had from Howard Lee himself, he tells me, yeah, this version is much better than ours, you know. So coming from him, I'm honored, you know.
Yeah, you should be honored. So many songs to choose from. How'd you whittle it down to these 11? And is there enough content for maybe a part two?
No, I think I want to do a thing like this once. The next album has to be obviously an album again with own songs, by own songs, own lyrics, the whole thing. So let's see what happens to this album. I'm sure that people will love it at parties. I can see this also going down very well in the summer outside, you know, amphitheaters and stuff like this. I can everybody can sing along the songs. This is what's the thought in my head. Bring back the 80s in a nice place in the summer where everybody can drink a few beer, have a little smoke, and be happy, you know? This is what I'm thinking.
So Herman, you included 2 Scorpion songs in there. And you know, it's everybody that knows their history of the Scorpions knows that you were a songwriter in the band, especially during the commercial success and the rise to you guys becoming a powerhouse global band. Songs like Rock You Like a Hurricane, Blackout, Make It Real, Bad Boys Running Wild, and so many more. So the question becomes is what was your songwriting process? And do you have a first personal favorite track from that era?
Yes, of course, you know, obviously my own songs, you know, which I wrote or co-wrote the lyrics for. The biggest one was obviously What We Like the Hurricane. And many people ask me, how did you get the idea from What We Like the Hurricane? Well, listen to the lyrics. It's early morning and the sun comes out. Last night was shaking and pretty loud. My cat is purring and scratches my skin. So what is wrong with another sin? So that morning I was in Arizona. It was a heavy night, you know, with lovemaking, drinking, the whole stuff in the 80s. So I'm opening up the curtain at 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun comes straight in there. The girl is still in bed, and we were partying all night. Obviously, everything was destroyed in the room, but that's how these lyrics came together. All my lyrics were very sexual, as you know by now. And Klaus wrote the ballads. He wrote Still Loving You, Wind of Change, Always Somewhere, all that stuff. He was the specialist for the ballads, and I was the specialist for the pop song, together with Rudy, of course, with Rudolph Shaker.
Herman, just a question, a philosophical question. Was your English better, perhaps, than Rudolph's and Klaus's? That maybe you had a better pen and paper and could interpret German to English and back. Was that one of the reasons you were asked to write?
Yeah, this was the first thing they asked me. When I joined the band in 77, in May, we went in the studio in August to record Taken by Force. And on that album is a song called He's a Woman, She's a Man. You probably know it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened in Paris. We made a promotion visit to Paris. And of course, we went to the red light district to look at all the girls. And suddenly we also looked at this one beautiful girl. And we all thought, oh, look at this knob out there. So this girl walked towards the car. I was sitting in the car, putting the window down, and there comes a very deep voice. Hi, guys. How are you? Was a transvestite, the first one. He's a woman, she's a man. This is exactly happened there. And I said to Rudy, look, I have the perfect hook line for our song, you know. He's a woman, she's a man. That's how it came together. In Paris, this was what, 77, 78.
We're talking with Herman Rarebell, his new solo album, What About Love? Really, what about drums? Herman, before we get into the Scorpion era, on the album cover, you have love crossed out in drums. Was that just your little side joke? What was that all about?
This is exactly as I joke. I just wanted to remind people they all know I play drums, and drums is my first love in life, obviously. But this time, I think we should also think about love all in the world. There's so much hate, we should exchange that for love. Otherwise, where do we go? Where should this end? Do we really want to put each other into the other world? What for, you know? I love life, so not everybody should do the same thing. I wish people would write songs again like a bunch of John Lennon song, you know?
More imagery of that album cover. What about the destroyed building outside the window? What was that all about?
Why did you come and visit me in Europe? I show you many of those cities. You will be surprised what's happening here.
Walt will check you out when he goes to Rocktoberfest in 2026.
Yeah, perfect to come. This year you should come if you can make it.
Right. You know, it's funny on a side note to that, Herman, when I did visit Berlin, this had to be about 10 years ago. I was surprised at you know, how Berlin still as maybe as advanced as it I thought it was still looked like it was still somewhat coming out of the war in a sense. Like it wasn't as built up as I thought.
Well, look, there was the wall was there until 1990, as you know, 1989. So we played the Moscow Music Peace Festival. After that, there's the famous handshake from President Reagan with President Gorbachev, and then the wall fell down. So suddenly, East Germany and West Germany were together after over 10 years. And they didn't do much to Berlin. They left most of the buildings there as they were before. That's why that didn't look like a modern city. But now it is. When you come now, it looks like a complete round up.
Yeah.
So, Herman, you joined the band for the Taken by Force album, and Yuli Roth, the original guitarist, left after that, actually after the Tokyo Tapes release. Quickly bring us up to speed. You're joining the band, Yuli leaving, in the transition of Michael Schenker and then Matthias Jabs into the band. Because it wasn't a long time. It was maybe a year and a half. Tell us about that transition period.
Tell you, when I joined the band, when I first saw them at the Marquee Club in England, in London, I looked at the band and I saw two groups. I saw the Uli Ross band, the Hendrix band, which he plays like Hendrix. He plays amazing, you know. Straight up, met anyone here, he said he influenced me very much, Uli Ross. So then you had the other side, the melodic side of Klaus Meine and Rudolf Schenker, who singing very melodic like Uriah Heep or any of those bands at the time, melodic hard rock, I would call it. So I thought that the band, and Uli didn't like, he's a woman, she's a man at all. He thought this is simple pop, and I don't want to play this. He didn't want to play the solo. So after that record was done, we told us all, I want to now make my own solo career, and I want to make my own band. I think it was called Electric Sun, the first band he had. All says, okay, if you want to go, then go. And I know Michael Schenker for a long time. I knew him from England because I lived there from 71 till I joined the Scorpions. So what happened was, at that time, Michael split from UFO. So I phoned him up and said, why don't you join us? You're free now, you can come. So he joined at the Last Drive album, as we know. And he played my song, Another Piece of Meat, as the solo. It's Michael Schenker, you know. All the songs he wrote on there, like Holiday, Love Drive, Coast to Coast, this is all his influence. And the next time I played with Michael was in 2010 to 2016. We had a band called Temple of Rock. Maybe you remember. What that is, yeah, really good band, you know. Doogie White, the ex-singer from Richie Blackmore, he was our singer then. And Francis Buchholz played bass. We were together 6 years.
Herman, I remember that well. I took a visit to Sweden Rock in 2012 to attend that festival, and that was the last time I saw you perform. And Francis Buchholz was in the band with Doogie. It was a Love Drive celebration. I was there.
Exactly, you know. With Michael, but at that time when we toured, we played half of the shows, we played UFO songs, the other half was Scorpion songs, basically my songs. What We Like a Hurricane, Blackout, all this stuff, Another Piece of Meat and all this stuff. But it was a pleasure for me to play with Michael. For me, he's the best guitar player in the world. He still will be. He's still voted every year now for 35 years in Japan, #1. And so long this goes back.
Oh yeah, but MSG was huge. It's still huge in over in Japan. They recorded albums there, and yeah, it's a great point. So 1979, the Scorpions, their goal was to come to America. That was their goal. And they came. And that first gig you guys had right down the street from me from Rochester in Cleveland. And what a show it was. Share some of the memories of that because, as I recall, I wasn't at the show, but I was a big fan of that. I have it on bootleg. You guys played at 10:30 in the morning before Aerosmith and Bon Scott. Share the memories of that first show.
What happened was our management, Lieber Krebs, they had at the time, um, they had Aerosmith, they had later on AC/DC, and Cleveland was the first gig we could play with all those bands. For us, it was an amazing honor. After us, I remember Sin Lizzy, they after us, and then everybody was there that day, you know, Ted Nugent, Aerosmith, everybody. So for us, it was unbelievable. So the day after, we started the tour with AC/DC as an opening act. I remember that tour with Bon Scott. Then we supported, of course, Aerosmith on one tour, Ted Nugent. That made us big in America because we could play opening up for all those big bands. So every night, 20,000 people saw us. And after a while came the festival in San Bernardino. After that, we were big in America. After Rocky Like a Hurricane and Blackout anyway.
Oh, sure. That was the golden age. But you made your way, 1980, Animal Magnetism. You're touring with a young Def Leppard, and it was the formative years and the of the golden age. So, before we move forward through the 80s, I have one question. Whose idea was it when you were doing the live there, and I can't get enough, to make that, pyramid of everyone? Oh, how did that get developed?
Well, I came basically from Klaus, Rudolph, and Matthias and Francis because they were standing in the front. So they had to build this pyramid so everybody could jump on the left and on the right leg to stay there. I was just behind the drums. I could only go in the end and say,
Yeah.
but this is how this came together. And I remember in the US Festival, I can't get enough with that song. So everybody went completely nuts from that moment. And as you remember, Van Halen, David Lee was completely drunk that night. For our advantage. So we took over, you know. We got fantastic critics from that day. And basically that broke the bands in America on that level.
You're right on that because I'm a huge Van Halen fan, but you guys ruled that, but that was the blackout end of the blackout. That was pre-Love at First Sting, and I remember seeing the, Rainbow, Scorpions, and Riot tour, and you guys were just on fire. What was it like playing with Rainbow and Richie Blackmore? And because that was really Rainbow's, I think, commercial peak in America with, Stone Cold and, that Joel and Turner era. How was it with Richie Blackmore?
For me, it was fantastic. Everybody was afraid of Michael Bond, really good. Maybe because I knew Cozy very good, you know, we were two drummers, you know. I'm very sad he passed away. But that tour we did together, and I think we played in Rochester too at that tour. Which I remember it, basically. But that tour came together. I remember when Bobby Like I Heard it went in the Billboard charts in top 10, Richie came to us and said, why don't we swap? Let me open now, you're the new headliner. You know, so that switch was funny. In the afternoon, there was no sound checks. Richie wanted to play football. Fuck the sound check, let's play football, you know. That's how he picked, you know.
A lot of bands do that. Iron Maiden is big with that, playing football. It must be, something that the European guys or the guys from the UK like to do. So Herman, for me, being a high school student, the first time I was able to see the Scorpions was the summer of 1988 in June in New Jersey at Giant Stadium. It was the day after I finished school, and there was two nights. I went on the second night, and I remember it was hot as hell, the sun coming down, but that was the first time seeing such a big event with Van Halen and Scorpions, Doc, and of course Metallica, Kingdom Come. Um, you know, was there anything memorable for you about that tour specifically?
Yeah, the Monsters of Rock, and I have from that. It came yesterday. I showed you, hope you can see it. That Hosta, it got made of me 20 days ago for the new album. This is from that gig. Have a look. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow.
He hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the Giant Stadium, by the way, in New York.
See that?
Yeah. Well, basically, this was the best time again in the 80s, and all those memories. I had in my head now for many years, so I decided finally to write it down, because it was the best time and there's so much to tell. And when you read the book, okay, there is also some dirty stories in there, but there were many groupies around, so I think it's time to write about them as well. Thank you.
Well, that's funny. It was meant to be today, Herman, because I was probably at that show, and I still have my ticket stub in my collection over here. So isn't that awesome that you have that picture? But Herman, you commented on the Moscow Peace Festival a little bit before. Winds of Change was probably the biggest song at the time. It became probably the biggest global event of the decade. You mentioned speaking to Michael Gorbachev at the Kremlin. It's like, what were the topics of that conversation?
I tell you what, a very, very nice man, very funny. I remember one thing when he asked the whole band in the middle of our 3, 4 hours we were there, what is heavy metal? And we all go, oh, explain it to us. He said, you remember Khrushchev, the president of the Soviet Union, when he took off his shoe at the United Nations on the round table and he hammered with the shoe on the table. And he said, that's heavy metal. So he was a funny man. Also, when he came 3, 4 years later to visit Germany, we have him in our video, Wind of Change. He's shaking hands with President Reeb. When you go on this watched video, you can see it, For me, this song was not a typical Scorpion song. It was a nice ballad. And we had many, many new fans with this song, especially women. I remember when we played in Munich at the Olympia Hall, there were maybe 80% women, older women also. They're all sitting there the whole concert like this with their fingers in their ear. And after we played in the middle of the set, Still Loving You and Wind of Change, they went up and left the hall and never came back. And those people also didn't come back for 3 or 4 years because they said the Scorpions now play Schlager, which is like country and western or something like this. So that song was good for us commercially, but it was also not good for the style of the band because we are basically a hard rock band, as you know. So this only people wanted to listen to ballads. They're just older women. Oh, how nice! How many more songs they have like this? Excuse my voice. I had already 5 interviews today, so I'm a bit right.
Oh, help yourself to something to drink, sir.
Yes, that's what I do right now.
Well, what's the name of that beer he should be slugging? What's your favorite beer there?
Mine's the Kolsch style, but he gave me a particular brand.
Just some
I don't.
and so on. No, this was a lovely time. And after Wind of Change, also the style changed and music, grunge came, Nirvana, bands like this. So for me, by 96, I decided, you do this now for 20 years, it's time to do something else.
Yeah. Why do you think the band pivoted to these ballads? They tasted a little success, and because now, excuse me, Herman, you had slower songs, Lady Starlight, some of those slower tempo songs that I don't know, you could consider them ballads, but they're ballads with balls, if you will. Why did they pivot to these?
Well, I think Wind of Change hit the nerve of the time because don't forget, we played before in the Moscow Music Peace Festival. So we thought, fine, now we did it. We made a big contribution to peace to the world because the Russians also like rock and roll. And finally, now East and West will be together in peace. That was my belief then, in 89. Now look at the shit, what's happening now.
Sure, I know. Whose idea was it to incorporate that whistle? And do you think that's the real hook of that song?
Yeah, I tell you what happened. Because I'm also partly, also my fault also. What happened was because I wrote many lyrics with Klaus together, he whistled this to me and he said, find some words. And I go, no, leave this. This is great. Everybody can remember this. Leave the whistling. And he left it. He kept it. Thank God. For me, it's a part of the song. It's the hook in the song, really.
Hmm. And Francis Buckles, guy's out of the band. Do you still talk to Francis?
Yeah, I talked to him the last time when I played with him at Michael Schenker for 6 years. He was from 2010 to 2016. Then we split, and probably going to play next year again with Michael because his acoustic album comes out next year in spring, and I play drums on there. So he asked me already if we tour, you coming with me to tour? I said no problem, but not like the last time 6 years, make it shorter.
Sure. You mentioned he's a woman, she's a man. There's some other song subjects that are risque, if you will. Don't Make No Promises, and the story behind the song Arizona from Blackout, I believe. What's the backstory on those songs?
There's no bad stories. I mean, in Arizona, I wrote around that time, and rock you like a hurricane there, the words for it at least. Arizona was always a special state for me because when I was a kid, and I played Indians and cowboys, they always showed those beautiful photographs in those where you make a click, you remember there was a round thing like a DVD in there, and one picture went to the next. This was the times of Fury and Lassie, and I was about 6, 7. And my dream, one time in your life, you have to be in America, you have to go to Arizona and to Texas. Funny enough, my daughter lives now in Texas. She lives in Austin. She married an American. I have 2 grandchildren, and they live in Austin. Funny.
Austin's a beautiful city. So.
Be more wonderful.
Herman, do you have a cowboy hat when you go to Texas?
Yes, of course. Not only this, when I go there, I could live there actually forever. That's how nice I think Texas is as a state.
Well, say Nigel Glockler's in Texas. Also, Dallas. He's in Dallas. So you got a little drummer community down in Texas.
Oh, I didn't know. Tell me about it. What's happening there? Many drummers?
Well, no, Nigel Glockler, drummer of Saxon. He lives in Dallas. That's his main residency. So if you ever go to Austin, are you friends with Nigel?
No, not yet. But if you introduce me, I would like to.
Oh, he loves German beer. I know that for a fact. Walt partied with when it's still bus.
Know that Robert Plant. I didn't know either. He lives in Austin, Texas, many years now.
There you go.
Yeah, I should have to know that.
I went to see it just a few days ago, but coming at Brighton in the cinema in my hometown in England. Fantastic movie. For me as a Zeppelin fan, wonderful. I saw things which I never saw before. The movie starts with Good Times, Bad Times, my favorite song from Zeppelin. Did I tell you that I also like Sails of Sharon from Uli Rost? He composed that song, He was on the first album taken by Forst, Sails of Sharon. Yeah. Starts like this with guitar.
I love that song. I'm jamming it for years.
Yeah, I love that song too. That is a very, very typical Scorpion song for me from the early days. Great melody, great playing, and everything. So when Uli left, he didn't want to play songs like He's a Woman, She's a Man. He didn't want to become commercial. He wanted to stay in his direction and make guitar players happy worldwide. And that's large fans. He has probably 30,000 fans the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it also with Michael Schenker when we played the live shows. There's about 300, 400 guitar players standing on Michael's side, watching every move he does with the fingers, Guitar.
And I have something to share with you really quick before I ask you my one final question.
Yeah, go.
So I unearthed this picture. This was from Sweden Rock 2012. I took this myself with the camera. There's you and Francis.
Yes, absolutely. When you go now to YouTube, you put in YouTube Michael Brighton, nothing else. Michael Brighton or Brighton Michael. I think it's Michael Brighton. And you see Michael, Francis, and me rehearse in my house, in the basement of my house, in the studio. And then you will be surprised how good we play in there because the singer, Doogie White, wasn't there. So it was raining outside, so we played 45 minutes just outside the songs without singing. Check it out. This is amazing playing there.
Ooh, I would like to see that. I'd like to see that.
750,000 sticks for to rehearse.
Yeah, we will look that one up. So, Herman, one last question about the album covers, right? So Scorpions made some controversial album covers, right? You guys were known to put this provocative art on the front. Albums like Animal Magnetism, Love Drive, Love at First Sting. And in some of them, they led actually to some censorship issues, or you maybe had to change the covers. So was this artwork used more as a marketing tool, knowing that you could push the limits with this and maybe generate buzz, which would kind of push sales up?
Absolutely. What happened was I lived in England from 71 to 77, and I met Storm Ferguson from the firm Hypnosis, They met album covers like Houses of the Holies, Wish You Were Here. I mean, all those great, fantastic covers. So I went to him the first time with Klaus Meine, and I said to him, we're making an album called Love Drive. I'd like you to make something stunning. So then he came to Cologne to the studio and he showed us several covers. Then he showed us the cover from Love Drive with the chewing gum on the breast from the girl. So we all said, that's the cover, And then it was released, and the record company had to put red vinyl around that cover because of the obvious thing with the chewing gum on the. And it was forbidden in America. Parental guidance for my lyrics, of course, and all this stuff, But I said immediately to the band, it doesn't matter what Mick Jagger thinks is right. It doesn't matter how I get to the front page of a magazine. The main thing is I'm there. And that album made it to the cover of the year for Playboy. So they put the red vinyl around it, and of course everybody bought it. All those kids that bought it because they wanted to see this cover.
Oh, sure. That PMRC label, I don't want to say it backfired, but it was an unexpected plug. It's just like, it's
The gold album was the first gold album we had. That shows you. People like those, especially kids when they're 14,
and that's what I was about to say. I was a little older. I was like 16, 17 when that PMRC came out, like 85, 86. So, but Herman, where can people get in touch and follow you share your social media outlets?
My website is very simple, hermanrarebell.com. My name.com. Then you go on there, you can see all my new videos. You can see what I do. You can see my philosophy, what I think about things, why I did this album for the 80s. Also, my new book is on there since today, but it's not in English yet, only in German for Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, but it will be also translated into English. But that's fine. We make another interview, promote the book. And maybe even and promote it in America.
Will that book be an audio book version?
No, not yet. I could make it the audio very easy because all I have to do is speakers. But I made it as a reading book because I know going for myself when I make flights or I travel by train, I always like to sit in the train or in the airplane and read a book, an old-fashioned book with pages, I love that.
Oh, sure. That's true. Yeah, we all like to go back to what we're comfortable with, but then again, adapt to. I'm a big fan of Audible books, and because I could drive around in my day and listen to it, so there's many purposes. So,
I will. Easy for me.
Yeah.
Well, sir, thanks for starting our day with you. Thank you for your time. Great talk, and yeah, when you get that book out, get in touch with us, and we'll do this again.
Stay in contact with me so I know where to send stuff and all this, but especially with my manager, so he knows. And I like to see this also on my website. So send me the connection.
You got it.
You got it.
All right, for my co-host Metal Walt and our guest Herman Rarebell, I'm the Vernomatic, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you, Herman.
Cheers, Herman.
Cheers. See you in Munich.
Okay, sounds good. Cheers.
Metal for Life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.